Good evening to you all. I come to you today with a lot on my mind. Mostly love. Yes, love. Turn around the corner. You see a couple holding hands, looking into each other's eyes. Turn on the TV, and almost every movie and TV show, there's a love scene, love interest. It's everywhere we go. Except for the news, which will almost always leave you depressed in its wake. But truly, love is everywhere. In society, we are taught at a very young age to value love and find the one. However, what we are not taught is how to love. According to the American Psychological Association, about 40 to 50% of married couples in the United States divorce, with the divorce rate for subsequent marriages being even higher. We must therefore ask ourselves, what exactly is happening here? Why are so many people splitting up after vowing to stay together forever? I may not have all the answers. However, I have come up with a few theories after moments of self-reflection. If you were to Google right now, why do people break up or why do people fall out of love? You will see a variety of answers as well as common themes. The ones I have picked upon are lack of effective communication, which is a big one, incompatibility, lack of trust, infidelity, and so on and so forth. But I decided to dig a bit deeper. I did some research, and I decided I wanted to get to the root of these issues. What I came to realize after researching as well as doing my self-reflection is that there are three things that affect the quality of relationships that aren't as widely discussed. Those three things are ego, pride, and selfishness. Let's talk about ego first. Ego cannot be readily defined as it has so many components. However, when people talk about ego, they are referring to the sense of self-importance or thinking highly of oneself, which is not necessarily reality. This is not to be confused with self-esteem or confidence. We all have egos, big or small. It is very present. And a lot of times we take our egos into our relationships. And that's the first big problem. Egos in themselves are quite selfish. It's all about you. How can you be all about you if you're in a relationship, a union of two people? See how that can be confusing. And so many couples destroy their relationships by bringing their egos into it. They do this by having expectations and wants and needs because after all, they deserve it. In their minds, they are the creme de la creme, the best thing since sliced bread, and their partner should feel lucky to be with them, no doubt. They begin to have expectations of their partner, some unrealistic, because they feel they deserve it. A lot of times, people focus on what someone else can do for them and what they can bring to the table without really thinking about what they themselves can do for the other person or compromise to make each other happy. In the words of Eckhart Tolle, a genuine relationship is one that is not dominated by the ego with its image-making and self-seeking. In a genuine relationship, there's an outward flow of open, alert attention toward the other person in which there is no wanting whatsoever. Which leads me to pride. Pride is so very disruptive in a relationship, and not surprisingly, it ties into ego. Have you ever been in a position where your pride wouldn't let you do something, even if it was the right thing to do? I've been there too. We all have at some point in our lives. We may have really hurt someone we cared about and could not apologize simply because our pride would not let us. That would mean accepting that we have flaws, that we were wrong, that we are not perfect. Now add that into a relationship and you have two people who constantly hurt each other, but cannot ask for forgiveness and therefore cannot be forgiven, which leads to deep hurt and resentment. Pride also stops many from saying what they truly feel inside because they're afraid of seeming weak and emotional. Just the other day, I read a very interesting article from Psychology Today that said, pride prevents us from acknowledging our human vulnerabilities. The shame that drives pride makes us too uncomfortable to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong, I made a mistake. When pride rules, we believe we're always right, which makes it difficult to sustain intimate relationships. Nobody likes being with a know-it-all. Now, what pride and ego both have in common is selfishness. All the thought processes start with I or me, what I want, how that makes me feel. The reason so many relationships fail is because many people aren't able to act selflessly. Even when they do good things for their significant other, it is in the hopes that they themselves get something in return. They develop expectations and want them to be met. And so, my good people, I urge you to look within yourselves, especially if you feel your relationship is crumbling, and ask these 3 questions. Do I let my ego be the driving force of my expectations? Have I been too prideful to genuinely say I am sorry? Have I only been thinking about my wants and needs? No one will ever know what you put into your relationship except for you. Maybe you consider yourself to be very selfless, prideless, the most humble person on earth. However, I urge you to self-reflect and think about these 3 vital things. Act on them and see how your relationship changes. Thank you, and have a day filled with love.